Well, here we are. Week 2 of Crescendo is officially passed, and tonight we take a look at 4 hot topics in the community as a whole. We'll take a look at some of the strategy we saw in Week 2, a deep dive into legal and ethical strategies, a review of the Kitbot released by FRC in this year's kickoff broadcast, and a discussion related to the alliance selection process and choosing your own team for the playoffs inspired by the Chief Delphi thread. All of this and more coming up on this episode of FRC Roundup.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. Discover how Kettering University students engineer their success with Kettering's amazing co-op employment programs where students earn great pay and gain valuable experience. Those accepted into Kettering University can apply for a robotics scholarship providing up to an additional $5,000 a year in tuition assistance. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more and apply. Support Fun's content creators when you sign up for a membership on YouTube Join. You'll get access to special perks like emotes, loyalty badges, and Fun members will even get early access to our scheduled videos and more. 100% of this revenue will go back to our correspondents to help recognize their efforts. Click the join button in any YouTube video to pledge your support.
Welcome to the show. If you have not caught our show previously, FRC Roundup is where we take a look at important topics currently happening in FRC, highlight some discussion points about events that may have happened, strategy, or anything that correlates with FRC. If you, the Fun community, think there's a topic that we should discuss on FRC Roundup, please feel free to ping me on the Fun Discord, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Mathis, and I'm currently in the 1st and Michigan region, and I'm a mechanical mentor on FRC Team 33, the Killer Bees.
And I'm Connor McBride, mentor for Team 166 Chop Shop and an MC and game announcer in the New England District. Our guest tonight is Jeff Bunca. Jeff is a mentor and drive coach on 1923, the MidKnight Inventors. Jeff, welcome to the show, and big congrats to 1923 on your double gold cling bling at FMA Allentown.
Yeah. Don't forget the Dean's List, too.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Dean's List.
Super excited to be here.
For sure. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks again for coming on after a crazy weekend. So jumping right into our first topic of the night, we're going to be taking a look at the strategy and, meta of Crescendo in general, kind of a review. This is something that I, foresee us doing each week, but it's interesting to take a look at, where the game is developing from, week to week and what we're seeing. Obviously, it's no secret that from year to year, the game evolves throughout the 6 weeks of competition up into DCMP and the championships. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take a little bit of a look into kind of general strategies that we saw throughout the week. And then we're going to take a deep dive into what 1923 had done, specifically in the finals at Allentown. But to begin, just an overall thought of where everybody was at throughout the week. From what I saw, I didn't get to catch too many matches this weekend, but from the couple events in Michigan and then the couple events west that I got to catch, we're still seeing a lot of that passing versus cycling strategy. I know Jeff and I were talking off stream a little bit, but I think this is one of the things that is really going to start to deviate as we get into, week 4, week 5, jumping into DCMP and stuff like that we're going to see, overall what that's going to turn into. Obviously, on 33, we're a big passing team, I guess we'll like to say, is one of the things that we identified kind of early season that we're going to keep running with here in the coming weeks, into next week in DCMP. But Connor, I don't know how much you got to catch on, the New England side of things last week or what you saw. I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but, just your overall thoughts on how the game is developing into week 2 and beyond.
Yeah, so a lot of teams in New England right now have just been running just like, doing full court cycles. It hasn't really been a lot of depth of field at our events to be able to have that second pick or even that first pick to be able to run shuttler and, still be able to make a massive impact in the playoffs. I love the strategy, and I think it's probably going to be more of an effective strategy come like district champs and worlds, in my opinion, because, like three robots cycling to the source, that is a recipe for disaster. There's so much, there's not a lot of space actually. And let alone even 2 robots trying to go and grab game pieces from the floor can be difficult at times, depending upon where you're running your routes and how your cycles kind of line up with each other. We're still seeing this meta develop, and I think there's still so many different ways to play this and win.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, chat, let us know what you guys are thinking overall in terms of that passing versus cycling strategy that we're talking about, or something else that you guys might have identified at events that you guys are seeing. Obviously we can us 3 and Tyler can only watch so many events throughout the weekend, so let us know what you guys are seeing. But I'm definitely with Connor in terms of, the source not working out. Jeff, I'd be interested to get your opinion on this as well before we jump in kind of the finals. But I think one of the things that the passing strategy allows you to do is really put the game piece on the floor in the source really at like the last second to kind of eliminate that opposing alliance taking away some of the pieces and stealing from your source to make shorter cycle runs. But yeah, just overall thoughts on that, and then your overall thoughts on passing versus cycling, and then we can jump into what 1923 had done at the finals this past weekend.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it on the head. Those are the two big, main strategy, call it flavors right now. I will add that one detail that we sort of try to interpolate or incorporate rather into our qualification schedule strategy was more of a, call it an opportunistic cycling strategy.
Sure.
Because a lot of folks are super focused on source feeding and then moving in on the standard cycling pattern. So, we were very confident in our ground intake. So we would basically offset ourselves from the other two source feeders by cleaning up the center, looking for steal opportunities, stuff like that, and kind of jumping in and out of that standard cadence whenever we could, because you guys are right. It gets very tight in the source. It's very, very, it's a very small area. So.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of jumping into where you guys were at with your eliminations. I didn't get to catch too much of your matches outside of the finals, but was the passing versus cycling thing something that you guys alternated with throughout eliminations? Is it something that you guys had worked on, throughout? I know you mentioned the opportunistic cycling, but was it something that you guys had worked throughout the playoffs and then really highlighted it in the finals, or was that kind of your overall goal from the beginning? I know you obviously take one match at a time, review certain things, and strategies can differ from match to match, but just wanted to get some insight on, how 1923 does their overall strategy for, eliminations as a whole, and then how you kind of developed to get to where you guys were.
Yeah. So when we were working through our pick list on Saturday night, moving into, the final day of competition, we knew that passing was a viable option if we were with the right team to do it. And in this case, 103 was the perfect candidate. But it was iterated over and over again in those discussions that they couldn't be the one trick pony. They had to be able to cycle outright in the case that we needed to adjust from that. And the reason I bring that up in your question on whether or not we started or maintained passing throughout eliminations is we actually set up a cadence where we would start the match with the passing strategy, and then once we built a large enough lead, we would actually call out a switch and we would convert to solid cycling to maintain the lead. And then also to starve the field of pieces, because in a lot of cases, the opposing alliance was missing a lot, was, maybe getting a little bit more careless as the clock was ticking down. So we felt that if we switched over to more opportunistic, cycling, we were maintaining our lead and also reducing the likelihood that they'd be able to catch back up or thin the lead. So we would kind of start one way and then switch to another way as the tail end of the match came in.
Sure. So follow-up question on that. I noticed that you guys finals one had tied. Similarly, I had our first week one, we had a match where we had tied, unfortunately had lost on tech fouls. But what was the kind of, you being the drive coach in the middle of the match, what was the overall goal of that match? And then ended up tying from that standpoint. Were you running similar to what you had talked about where you were shifting, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so we did shift. I think we might have made a little bit of a mistake there strategically mid-match and shifted a little too early. And then that coupled with the fact that we had some performance issues or some, I guess, mechanical failures on our robot that kind of reduced our efficiency. It was just kind of a perfect storm, but definitely a good learning opportunity for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess building upon that, Connor, as we get into, 166 is finally going to compete this weekend. I know you guys have been chomping at the bit to get on the field officially. And moving forward, this weekend's going to be really like the halfway point for a lot of teams between DCMP and what that looks like. Where do you see, as 166 as a whole, but then overall, the game, where do you see really this developing? I know you mentioned like once we get to DCMP, it's going to take a larger step, but what's 166 thoughts on, overall passing? Are you guys going to try and do that this weekend? Or are you just going to try and get your rhythm on cycling? And what's that going to look like for you guys?
Yeah, so over the past few weeks, we got our competition robot up and running a couple weeks ago, and auto's finally getting dialed in. But what we've been focusing on is just running cycles just
Sure.
for hours on end. Like one of the things that we've noticed in strategy is, in qualification matches, the amp isn't used as often as playoffs. We spent a solid like 3 to 4 hours one day just running amp cycles. The most boring thing ever, but my God, are we good at it?
Yeah, that's good to hear, man.
Yeah, I think we'll probably end up seeing a lot just running the full court cycles. We've talked about possibly playing a feeder, at least like driving like to the half court line and just kind of popping them over to the speaker. But it's not something that we've actually practiced right now, so I'm not entirely sure if that's something that we want to pull out of the bag,
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. And then Jeff, just to kind of wrap us out, obviously finals 2 and 3 to Allentown, 1923 in your alliance were able to pull away. What do you think in general worked well for your alliance in those 2 matches and allowing you to, take the win and then eventually pull away and pull out with the win of the event as well?
Yeah. So I guess going back to your point about, passing versus cycling, I saw the same thing that Connor kind of described, where, you don't see a lot of amplification in quals. Everybody is just RP hungry, right? They're just hunting for RPs, and in most cases that just means volume.
Yep.
And obviously, with the exception of 166, most folks are just grinding speaker cycles in practice over and over again, exclusively almost. So most people are scoring the quickest with speaker shots to get that volume on the board. Really what it came down to was just coordination. So if you watch any of our, finals matches or even late elims matches, you'll see we actually end up starting at somewhat of a deficit coming out of auto. And we're able to pull that back up because of the fact that we were coordinating perfectly with 103, knowing exactly when to hit the amplification and when to start hammering the speaker to boost our score. So I think honestly, like, I don't know if you'd call this a meta, and this might not be different from other years, but this game is so critically, it's so critical that you're coordinating perfectly with your alliance members. And as you guys know, probably, it's really hard to coordinate perfectly with randomly assigned alliance members in quals. So
yeah, absolutely.
That kind of strategy kind of makes me think of like for 2014, because passing that trackball from one robot to another, you really got to learn who you worked well with and who you didn't. And it's just so critical to make sure that you get that down pat.
For sure. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Connor. Well, before we go ahead and jump into our next topic of the night, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler on to introduce our first giveaway for the night.
Yeah, our first giveaway is going to be for our friends at Swerve Drive Specialties. Check out this dope t-shirt that they're giving away. This thing's sweet. Going through the progression of the MK Swerve modules all the way through. So pretty awesome for that. So if you're interested in winning this, type in SDS Timeline in chat right now. Don't forget, if you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, absolutely free to do. You get 3 times luck to win on that. So good luck to everybody. We'll draw for that after topic 2 as well, too. And thanks again to Swerve Drive Specialties for the awesome giveaway. Go check them out at swervedrivespecialties.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. And thanks again to our friends from Swerve Drive Specialties. Jumping into our next topic tonight, we're going to be taking a look into some legal and ethical strategies that was highlighted by an Is This Legal thread on Chief Delphi. I do want to preface that we're not going to turn this into a specific team call-out throw. We want to take this opportunity in this thread to review how First in general views the specific drawing of foul, as I like to call it. The foul in which a team can be called on for, purposely trying to draw a foul against the opposing alliance. I'm sure that, all of us, Jeff, Connor, and I, and even Tyler at some point as well, but have all been involved in, a possible scenario in which a team it looks like they're purposely trying to draw a foul to, gain a competitive edge at some point, whether it's in the qualification or elimination rounds of the tournament. I know that there was another thread that was also posted that jumped down to some issues that happened at another event that was noticed. So we just want to come on, have a quick discussion about, where do we think the First is going to take this? I'll preface, from my standpoint of view, I think this is something that First really needs to address. It's something that's been, pointed out not just this year, but throughout the few years, especially the past years, where teams are, utilizing, whether that's a broken down robot, pushing them into a protected zone and drawing some tech fouls. I know that we saw at Texas this weekend, we saw a lot of tech fouls called for robots that were dying in protected zones. So I really think FRC needs to nail down on this and really start to incorporate their head refs and in general influence organizations as a whole to really be pro first or pro gracious professionalism in a way, and really start to nail down on when we can start calling tech fouls or whatever it is that may be that year for those teams that are trying to take advantage of that. So Connor, I know you're a game announcer, you get to watch a lot of matches. I'm sure that you've seen scenarios like this possible at events, whether that's at the championship or New England District Championship or stuff like that. But just want to get your overall thoughts on what came with the thread, and then how can we influence FRC to make a move on this.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, in prior, I tried looking for it earlier today in the game manual, but there used to be a rule is something like don't bring others, don't drag others down while they're already out or something like that. This kind of falls under that same kind of scenario. Like if there's a robot that's dead in a not so great area that you could capitalize on, that I personally don't believe that you should be able to go in there and just rack up penalties, just hitting them left and right. It's like that is not in the spirit of FRC. That is not gracious professionalism. I've unfortunately seen it happen. It's happened to me before, and there's been some times at events where it hasn't been noticed by the referees and those penalty points stay. There's also been times when the referees are like, no, this is not right, that's not in the spirit of FRC. Negate all those penalties that were called during the match. And more times than not, the referees absolutely get that right, and they already have a hard job as it is, but they do a really good job at trying to make sure that everyone's trying to play as fair as possible.
Sure. And again, I think this goes back to, we discussed this a little bit last year as well, but, putting the referees in a position in which, it's difficult for them to make that call. We put a lot of weight on our referee shoulders and the head ref specifically, and, asking them to, again, go on this and then try and, correlate an issue to where they think a team is purposely, breaking the rules to get a competitive advantage. But Jeff, from a drive coach perspective, over in your region, I don't know, I'm not sure how much you have seen this or if you've been a part of this, but just wanted to get your overall thoughts on, what you think can be done moving forward about this issue.
Yeah, when I saw that this topic was on the list for tonight, I reviewed the manual as well. I came into G211, I think it is, which is it's like a strategy clearly aimed at taking advantage of another opponent or whatever to benefit, is not within the spirit of the game, and I agree with that. I do think you have to be realistic though. So obviously, I'm not saying egregious like hitting a disabled robot over and over and over again is the right thing to do. That's absolutely I agree with Connor on that completely. But at the same time, like, I don't know that it's appropriate to expect another alliance or an opposing alliance to slow down or try to, walk on eggshells around a robot that might have just been unluckily disabled in the wrong location.
Mm-hmm.
So I think incidental contact is one thing, but obviously obvious, egregious trying to like run up the score like that is just not appropriate.
Yeah, and then you can you kind of look at it from the flip side too, right? Where there might be a team in which they're trying to, I thought about this the other night, where you get a robot that like purposely, hits the E-stop in the opponent's source zone and then tries to abuse the opposite way of the foul, where you can only get a foul on me, but then I'm going to shut down your entire, your entire one section of the source. I know that there's rules. I didn't get a chance to look at the game manual, but there's rules specifically noting like shutting down a portion of the game. I think that would, be characterized in that specific standpoint. But I'm just interested to see, what can FRC really do to try and correlate this, because I don't know that putting stress on our head referees to make that call is the answer. But then what is the answer, right? If we don't want to put the stress on our head referees at event local situations, what is the answer from that? And I don't know that we have one, but I think it's important to discuss in general. So. Okay, well, before we go and jump into our next topic, we'll go ahead and bring Tyler on to draw for that giveaway and hear from our friends at Kettering University.
Yeah, so we're going to draw for the giveaway first. Once again, that was for the SDS shirt on there. So if you did want to win that, make sure you type in SDS Timeline, because we're going to draw for it right now. And don't forget, if you do win a giveaway, make sure you go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner. That is how we are taking information for those who win our giveaways as well. And thanks again to Sword Drive Specialties for the awesome giveaway. The winner today is going to be Ninja Wolf Sun. Ninja Wolf Sun, congratulations. Make sure you go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner in order to claim, and you'll be able to put your shirt size and all that stuff in there. Remember, if you don't, you get extra small. That's always the rule that we go with here as well, too. So it's fun that way, right? Hey, let's also thank our friends at Kettering University for their continued support of First Updates Now. Kettering University, the time is running out, by the way. If you are accepted to Kettering University, to apply for their $5,000 a year robotics scholarship. So go to kettering.edu/first to get more information on that. And if you're interested in Kettering University, fantastic place. They have a FIRST Robotics Center. They have a whole bunch of teams there that you can help support if that's what you're interested in doing in college. But one of the greatest things about Kettering University is so many people who are in high school robotics go to Kettering University as well, too. Over 30% of people who go to Kettering University were in high school robotics. So go check them out and all the cool things that they have to offer at kettering.edu/first. And thanks a lot to Kettering University for the continued support of First Updates Now.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. And thanks to our friends from Kettering University. Jumping into topic 3, we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Connor as he is going to lead us in the next 2.
Yeah. So, one of the brand new things about this year is First was providing a Kitbot in the kit of parts this year for teams to be able to use. So one of the things that we want to talk about, is, what have we seen from the Kitbot at competitions so far this year? How have they been playing out? And is it well? Is it good? What are some things that we can improve upon maybe? And, our overall general thoughts on this Kitbot. At least for me, for the events that I've seen in New England, I haven't seen it a whole bunch. Maybe like 2 or 3 times, and the Kitbots haven't been that great in competition. Being a source only robot for picking up game pieces makes it kind of hard. I know sometimes the geometry isn't quite right, and a human player might try and throw the game piece into the robot, and it doesn't always land, and you get a note stuck on the robot, and now the robot's almost kind of out of commission for offense, has to switch to defense. I think if it had like a ground intake, it would probably be a little bit better. Or even if it was like a dedicated amp robot, I think that might have been a little bit easier, because then that's a part of the gameplay that you don't see a whole lot during quals that might have maybe changed the meta a little bit for those teams that do play that Kitbot. And kind of also expanding upon that, in the Everybot added, the Everybot did add the amp mechanism. I've only seen that once, but I haven't seen it actually used in competition. I don't know if you guys have seen anything. Jeff, if you want to take it away.
Yeah. There was one actually great example of a well-executed Kitbot at Allentown this past weekend. Team 9100. I think they're the Robo Roses, and they went pretty deep in eliminations. And they didn't add anything special. They basically ran the standard Kitbot formation, same drivetrain, same. They might have had different motors. They might have ran like Neos instead of Sims, but they just looked well executed, well practiced, and they were putting up 5-6 speaker shots on average, which I thought was great for a Kitbot team. But I agree with you, Connor. You really got to thread the needle when it comes to feeding that robot. And, I have to remind myself that, if I'm not mistaken, First presented the Kitbot as really like partial build, right? Like they should be elaborating and adding to it. So if that was the purpose of the design, then I think they did a great job. Obviously teams should be looking to further fortify or improve those setups.
Yeah, for sure. I think, one thing that's interesting too is that, the Everybot team, when, Jenna and Ryan and Ethan and everybody that works on the Everybot, commend them, largely as well. But when they had came out with that, they had really commented on that they were trying to build something that teams with the Kitbot could build upon. And I'd be really interested to, see what the Everybot would have built had they, not used the Kitbot as, the standard base platform and whatnot, and what that would have looked like. I think that could have brought some interesting gameplay, whether like what you said, Connor, focusing on the amp, or having a robot that, it has a ground intake and stuff like that. So I would have been interested to see what that would have looked like. One thing that we did find that I want to highlight as well, that we noticed other teams, we didn't do it specifically, but other teams at Kettering, and a couple of Kitbots at Kettering were started to do at the end of quals, where the angle at which the Kitbot actually is fixed at is very good at feeding nodes over the stage. So if we get into a certain point where we get a lot of feeding strategies starting to come in, and a lot of teams starting to move that way, I think we can see the Kitbot being an extremely valuable asset to a lot of district events or district championships or championships even, and what that looks like. But I think that's one of the things that will evolve as we go down through the strategy as we go down in the weeks. But that's one thing that at least us on 33 noticed, and I'd be interested to see where that takes us from now. So
another thing that I kind of thought of is if the RA3D unqualified Quokkas didn't unveil that robot, I'm wondering how different our discussion would be right now, because I've seen a lot of those inspired. I mean, where 166 is kind of inspired by it. So yeah,
that's one of the Quokkas 3-day build was one of the only builds that when we were like finalizing our CAD model, we were having like internal struggles about like, did we overcomplicate this?
Sure. Yeah.
That robot looked great so quickly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, before we go ahead and go into our last topic of the night, we'll go ahead and bring on Tyler to introduce our second giveaway of the night from AndyMark.
Yeah, our friends at AndyMark are giving away a $50 AndyMark gift card to use at andymark.com. Now, personally, I would buy all goats with it, but whatever you want to buy, that's your choice for that. So go ahead over to andymark.com, see what they have for you to offer. Type in GOAT in chat. That is your keyword. We'll draw for that after our last topic. And thanks again to AndyMark for the awesome giveaway.
Yes, we do love the plush goats. So again, as I said before, we're going to go ahead and head it to Connor, and he's going to take away on topic 4.
Yeah, so something that kind of popped up a couple days ago on Chief Delphi, a thread called Choosing Your Own Team for Playoffs. This isn't a new topic. This is something that's been probably going on for many, many years, probably at least a decade. So as a lot of people probably know, there are some teams that have multiple teams, whether if they're sister teams or one's a JV team, one's a varsity team. People might know that as, Team Appreciate and Team Apprentice, or Mort and Mort Beta. And new for this year, there's Spartan and Spartan Squared. So one of the big things, is, is it okay for teams to be able to pick their sister or their JV or varsity team in playoffs? I personally think it's okay. In my opinion, they are, at the end of the day, they are two separate teams. So they're not registered, like students aren't registered on both teams. You have to be registered on one team. We're going to be getting into that in a minute, but I personally, I think it's okay because, they are two different teams. And at the end of the day, if that robot pairs well with the strategy that you were trying to emulate in playoffs, by all means, go for it. I know that there's some teams that purposely don't, which is totally okay. And there's some teams that might. We never actually heard that, but if that's your strategy, then so be it. I mean, this might kind of come off as a little snarky. So, but if you don't want them to pair up, pick one of them.
Yeah, that's a fair standpoint. Jeff, I believe at one point 1923 was at least had two teams, or was flirting with the idea of getting two teams. What was the can you just walk me through on, if I can't remember if you guys had them or were getting or were trying to get them, but if you were in a scenario like this, what would that look like for 1923 and their sister team at some point?
Yeah. So we definitely had them. They competed, and we picked the sister team at 2 of our events. The third event being our district championship, where we ended up playing each other in the finals. 2022. Yeah, 2022, the first full year back from COVID. The reason that's relevant here is the reason we decided to move forward with the double team or the dual team approach, we called it Project Gemini at the time, was because we had a huge influx of students who were coming off of the pandemic. They were super hungry to sink their teeth into all kinds of extracurricular activities. We saw something like 185 kids signing up for our FRC program. And we felt that it was a good approach to run 2 teams to maximize the benefit and maximize the experience, because so many of these kids had 0 experience for the last, call it 2 school years.
For sure.
But anyway, to get back to your point, the funny thing is, this was prior to them saying that a student could not be registered on more than one team. So we felt that it was more cultural. It was more better aligned with the cultural approach that we wanted, to have them both be a part of both teams. We had run multiple FTC teams out of our build space in the past, and it became a challenge to maintain team unity. This is our hand drill, not yours. Don't, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So we wanted to really, maintain a unified approach. So if you look back at the history page, it was 1923 and 1914. They were both called the MidKnight Inventors. They both had the same sponsors. They both had the same robot. They just competed independently at competition. In terms of the question of whether or not they should pick each other, I tend to agree with Connor. And the sole reason that we ended up picking 1914, in this case picked 1923, was because the data showed that they were the best robot available. And it's hard to really mount an argument to say that you should willingly ignore the statistics and the performance data just based on it being a team that you also run. I feel I understand that's probably a hot take, and we've definitely incurred our fair share of criticism for that program. But we felt like it was a well-run, well-executed decision. So.
Yeah, and Akash in chat actually has a really good counter argument to that. So he said, not choosing your sister team for alliances opens up the opportunity for other teams to falsely claim that the sister team who lost in a limb sandbag or threw the match. There's no win-win here. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's an interesting point. I know, like in Michigan specifically, we have a couple, I think there's 2 that come to mind. Martians and More Martians are probably the most prominent that we see over here in Michigan. Recently, there's 4381 Twisted Devils, 4422 Twisted Angels that are both sister teams. And I believe there's a couple more that continue to build on week to week. A lot of what we're seeing in Michigan specifically, outside of the Martians, is a lot of like varsity JV teams. So they're taking, that one team that, maybe just builds the kit bot, maybe they don't build twins or something like that. And they're getting a lot of, 8th grade freshmen, those underclassmen that don't have that FRC or first experience in general, and bringing them up through that way and allowing them to kind of grow before they get to the varsity team, so to say, which I think is pretty cool. But, I think it's an interesting point that Akash brings up, because no matter what you do, you're not going to please everybody. We see it in everything that we do. But Jeff, what's your overall thoughts on that? Did that ever, cross your guys' mind when you were thinking about that, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I do think that the amount of criticism that we incurred from Project Gemini was probably amplified by the fact that we decided to build twins. And again, not to sound pompous or cocky, but it also didn't help our case that they were good. Like they were successful, right? This probably wouldn't have been as amplified of a discussion in our case if we weren't doing well. For sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the teams, Mort Beta is the one that we cross paths with the most in FMA. I think the reason that they don't incur as much criticism as we did is because of the fact that they're running more of a, JV varsity, underclassmen, upperclassmen type of format, which is just another way to do it, I think.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, before we go ahead and wrap up the show, we're going to go ahead and bring Tyler back on to draw for that giveaway from Andy Mark.
All right. So I picked up about 6 goats already. I hope that's a good choice for this. But once again, goat was the keyword for that, for the $50 gift card from Andy Mark. Reminder, once again, go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner if you are selected. Hey, that's going to be Goggs, Goggs. Congratulations. Once again, go to firstupdatesnow.com/winner to fill out your information so we can get that out to you. Thanks again to Andy Mark and Sword Drive Specialties for the awesome giveaways. We have practically every live show we're doing, both on Roundup and the FRC Top 25. We will have at least 2 giveaways every show. So make sure you're tuning in live to get a chance to win those awesome giveaways.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again to all the suppliers helping us out with that. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to FRC Roundup. Special thanks to all those who clicked that subscribe button or stepped up to help fund by becoming a fund member or supporter by clicking the join button. Your support really helps us continue to make great content. Don't forget, you can watch FRC Roundup archived at youtube.com/first updates now and watch live Mondays during the competition season. Thank you to Jeff, our guest, for coming on, and on behalf of our producer Tyler Olds, my co-host Connor, and all fun correspondents, I'm Nick Jr., and thanks for watching. Good luck to all teams in week 3 of competition coming up this weekend. Big thanks to all of our moderators in chat as well. See you next time, same day, same time, where we take a look at what is going on with First Robotics on FRC Roundup. Thanks, everyone.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. Discover how Kettering University students engineer their success with Kettering's amazing co-op employment programs where students earn great pay and gain valuable experience. Those accepted into Kettering University can apply for a robotics scholarship, providing up to an additional $5,000 a year in tuition assistance. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more and apply.